Mushrooms are not an accessory to the biology of the world. They were here long before us, and they continue to sustain life in ways we are only beginning to understand. Before trees, animals, and humans appeared, fungi already existed. For hundreds of millions of years, they have been forming vast underground networks known as mycelium. These networks connect entire ecosystems, allowing nutrients, information, and warning signals to flow between organisms. Mycelium has no central command. It has no brain and no single point of control. And yet it responds to threats, regenerates after damage, and optimizes its own functioning. It operates as a whole through relationships between its parts, not through hierarchy. This should sound familiar. The human brain works in a remarkably similar way. Consciousness does not reside in one place. There is no single neuron that thinks. Experience emerges from dynamic connections between different regions. Consciousness is not a thing. It is a process arising from a network. And this is where psilocybin enters the picture. Psilocybin is a compound produced by certain species of mushrooms. In the body, it is converted into psilocin, which interacts with serotonin receptors in the brain. But the most important aspect of its action is not what it activates, but what it temporarily quiets. Research from Imperial College London has shown that psilocybin reduces activity in what is known as the default mode network. This network is responsible for the continuous narrative of the self, for ego, control, and rigid patterns of thinking. In depression and anxiety disorders, this network tends to be overactive. When its activity decreases, the brain stops running along the same familiar tracks. Regions that are usually separated begin to communicate. Greater plasticity and cognitive flexibility emerge. This is not chaos. It is reorganization. That is why psilocybin does not work like a conventional medication taken daily. It functions more like a switch, briefly redirecting the tracks along which the mind moves. Clinical studies conducted at institutions such as Johns Hopkins University support this view. In people with treatment-resistant depression, even 1 or 2 guided experiences led to significant improvements in well-being. In patients facing existential anxiety, including those with terminal illnesses, researchers observed a reduction in fear of death and an increase in meaning, acceptance, and emotional openness. Importantly, these effects often persisted for months and, in some cases, for years. This raises a crucial question. Why do some people describe these experiences as deeply mystical, while others experience fear? The answer lies in ego and control. When the structure of the self loosens and the need for control fades, a sense of unity and profound meaning can emerge. These are not hallucinations or visions, but an experience of being without the constant internal commentary on reality. Fear arises when the mind tries to maintain control at the very moment familiar structures begin to dissolve. It is a conflict between the need for safety and a process that temporarily suspends it. From a neurobiological perspective, it is the tension between a weakened ego network and resistance to letting go. This is not a mistake or a failure. It is a signal that something in the system is not yet ready to release. An increasing body of research also suggests that memory does not reside solely in the brain. Trauma and chronic stress become embedded in the body, influencing muscle tension, organ function, and regulation of the nervous system. Epigenetics confirms that experiences can alter gene expression and, in some cases, be passed on across generations. Psilocybin increases neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to form new connections. It does not erase trauma in a simple way. Instead, it creates conditions in which the body and mind can reorganize their responses. When people speak of detoxification, they usually think of chemical substances. Yet unexpressed emotions and prolonged stress can be just as burdensome. A nervous system locked in survival mode for years begins to signal distress through physical symptoms. Psilocybin does not cleanse the body, but it can reveal where the system has been defending itself for a long time. Returning to fungi and mycelium, it becomes useful to see them as a model of distributed consciousness. Mycelium has no identity and no center, yet it functions as a coherent whole. In a similar way, consciousness may not be something an individual possesses, but a process in which the individual participates. Many people describe psilocybin experiences not as gaining new knowledge, but as remembering something that was always present, hidden beneath the filter of the ego. Mushrooms are not teachers, and they do not provide answers. They simply alter the way experience is organized. Everything else comes from within us. Perhaps consciousness is not something separate and contained within the individual. Perhaps it is a network, and we are its nodes. And mushrooms, for hundreds of millions of years, have understood how networks work.